All right, welcome back. So we have a quick exercise using for loops and ranges. So the idea here, it's based off of an experience I had growing up where I had my mom or my dad often yelling at me to clean my room. And they would say, how many times do I have to tell you this? And so our little program here is going to ask, how many times do I have to tell you? And then the user inputs a number, in this case 3, and then clean up your room is printed 3 times. So if you don't want to do clean up your room, you could just print out hello X number of times, 3 times or 5 times. But the idea is we're taking a number in and we're just going to print something out that number of times. A very, very simple exercise. But there is, a tiny catch that you have to worry about anytime you're asking for user input. So give it a shot, pause the video, and then after this, I'll have a solution in 2 seconds from now. 1, 2. All right, I'm back. So let's go over a solution. Okay, so I'm going to make a new file here. I'm just going to call this one repeater.py. And the first thing we'll do is make a variable. Let's just call it times equals. And then we're going to ask for input. So input, how many times do I have to tell you? And I'll add a space because I always forget that space. And it's really gross when you just have to type input and it just goes on to the end without a space. Okay. So that will be a string, remember. So let's do times equals int of times. Otherwise, we would have the string 3, and we can't use that in a range because what we want to do is then do a loop for, and we'll just call it time in. And we can't just say for time in times. In some languages, you can do that. You could just say for x in 10, or 10 times do this, but we still have to have a range. But we can just do this. For time in range times print clean up your room. So essentially we'll have a number like 5. So we could hard code 5 in here. And this is a shortcut, remember, for doing this. 0 to 5. But if we just pass in 5, it will work just fine. And just to show that, if I go run this, Python 3 repeater, we get clean up your room 5 times. And it would be the same if we had this. Okay, so let's now go back to asking for times. And remember, we need to convert it to an int, and everything should work. Other than that, we're not using the time variable because we're doing the same thing each time through the loop, each iteration. We don't care if we're on the first or the second or the third. We don't need that number. How many times do I have to tell you? 2. Clean up your room twice. How about 10? There we go. The only change we could make if we wanted is to just do clean up your room. And let's do time. Let's make this an F string. And put time right there. So we get something like this. 4 time 0, clean up your room. Time 1, clean up your room. Time 2, clean up your room. And if we wanted to, we could shift this over 1. So we could do time plus 1 here. So that if I type in 5 times, it says time 1 instead of time 0. But really, this is above and beyond what we need to do. The only thing we wanted to do is just repeat some string of text a number of times depending on what the user says. And that's it. So I'll put 2 solutions up, this one and the simpler one we started with. Okay. So next we have a more complex exercise that is hopefully a little bit more challenging.